This is my lazy fat daughter." The words rang through the ballroom like a bell tolling at a funeral. My father said them with a smirk that curled the edges of his lips. Guests laughed. The tinkling, polite kind of laughter that people use when they want to fit in, even if it's cruel. I felt their eyes on me, hot and mocking. Then it happened. 4 young men in matching tuxedos, groomsmen standing near the head table, exchanged a glance. One of them said, "Sir." The other 3 finished together. "She's our commanding officer." The sound carried over the laughter, sharp as a trumpet note. The room froze. My father choked mid-sip, wine spraying onto the white tablecloth. He coughed, sputtered, his face going pale as the realization set in that the daughter he had mocked in front of 200 wedding guests was the same woman these men stood ready to salute. I had always known this day would test me. My only son, Mark, was marrying into the Hastings family, a well-to-do clan with deep roots in Virginia. The reception was held in their country club. I chose my dress carefully, navy blue, simple, understated. My life had taught me that blending in was safer than drawing attention, especially in front of my father. At 72, he had only grown sharper with his tongue. From the time I was a teenager, he'd called me names. Big girl, useless, slow. I learned early to keep my head down. My brothers earned his approval. I carried the weight of his disappointment the way I carried the medals on my uniform, quietly, without asking for recognition. What my father never knew was that invisibility had its advantages. I joined the army at 19. He thought it was a phase. Instead, I found myself. I rose through the ranks, serving in Iraq, then Afghanistan. By the time of my son's wedding, I wore the silver eagle of a full colonel. But my father never asked and I never told. Maybe some part of me wanted to keep it hidden. So I showed up to family dinners in plain clothes, never mentioning the ribbons, the deployments, the command. During the reception, when Jennifer brought her parents over to meet me, I braced myself. Nothing prepared me for my own father stepping forward and saying the words that still burned in my ears. "This is my lazy fat daughter." The crowd laughed. Not all of them, but enough. The groomsmen had served under my command in Afghanistan. I hadn't known they would be there. Mark had made friends with them after moving back home, never realizing they were my men. But when they heard my father's words, they decided enough was enough. "Sir, she's our commanding officer." The phrase dropped like a hammer. The laughter died instantly. Guests turned to stare at the men, then at me. My father sputtered, red-faced, wine dripping down his chin. And in that silence, for the first time in decades, I felt the weight shift. I wasn't the one exposed anymore. He was. I grew up on a 2-lane road outside of Chillicothe, Ohio. My father ran a small plumbing and HVAC outfit. He was good with systems and bad with people, especially the people under his roof. If a pipe leaked, he tightened it. If a child hurt, he mocked it. By 5th grade, I was big. My mother tried to intercept his cruelty with casseroles and kindness, but those two forces canceled each other out until I felt like zero. I learned early that invisibility was safety. If I could not be pretty, I could be useful. I stacked parts in Dad's shop, swept the floor, balanced the checkbook. He relied on my neatness while ridiculing my body. In high school, I ran cross-country. A guidance counselor slid a brochure for the Army across her desk during senior year. "You're organized and stubborn," she said. "Those go far in the service." My father laughed when I brought it up at dinner. "You'll quit the first time a drill sergeant yells," he said. I signed the enlistment papers on my lunch break and hid the carbon copies in my geometry binder. The day I shipped out, my father said, "Try not to embarrass us." I lifted my duffel and didn't look back. Boot camp liked neatness and stubbornness. So did the Army. Deployment came 2 years later, Iraq first, then Afghanistan. I learned 1,000 small reliabilities. I wrote home in neutral sentences, never mentioning my commendations. When my mother's heart failed, I flew home in my Class A's because there was no time to change. At the funeral, my father said before I could answer a neighbor's question about my uniform, "Just office work." She files papers. After that, I stopped bringing uniforms home. I showed up in jeans and soft cardigans. The less he knew, the less he could use. Years later, I took command of a battalion. My soldiers were a quilt of America. They didn't need me thin. They needed me steady. When Mark was born, I practiced a new language, praise that wasn't conditional, boundaries that weren't barbed. I told him that strength isn't loud and power isn't cruel. I made a quiet promise to myself. I would stop auditioning for a part I had already played and lost. Years of silence passed this way. Disciplined, chosen, sometimes lonely, always safer. The Hastings Country Club had the kind of parking lot where the cars all looked like they had names. The ballroom was champagne-colored with chandeliers dripping crystal. Jennifer was radiant. The Hastings guests had that country club casualness that reads as friendliness from a distance and inventory taking up close. My father arrived late, as he always did. He wore a suit a shade too shiny. During the reception, I was seated with couples who played golf with the Hastings. They asked what I did. Administrative work, I said. Lots of planning. Most people want a story they can set down easily. I first noticed the groomsmen at the bar, not because they were loud, but because they weren't. There's a quiet to men who have carried weight together. By the time the prime rib arrived, my father stood. I felt the shift before the first word. He had not been asked to speak. He thanked the Hastings, made a crack about the fancy food, gestured to Mark, and then his hand found me. This is my lazy, fat daughter. I have been called worse names by him, but words thrown into a microphone travel farther. I stood very still. Laughter broke around me like hail. Not everyone, but enough. My son stared at his water glass. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught the groomsmen straighten. My father launched into a story about me at 12, about a Little League fundraiser. The details were wrong, but accuracy is not the point of a performance. Across the room, the groomsmen's eyes met mine. I gave them the smallest nod. They set down their glasses and spoke together. Sir, she's our commanding officer. It wasn't loud, but it cut. My father blinked. Someone choked. A waiter froze mid-pour. My father tried to grin, took a nervous sip, and Bordeaux sprayed across the white tablecloth. You could hear it land. Staff Sergeant Miller kept his voice even. With respect, sir, ma'am led us in Coast Province. We'd prefer you speak of her accordingly. The band stopped. The room had hands, and every hand looked for a place to hide. Coast, Miller said softly. Convoy Bravo, June. Ma'am was the one who went vehicle to vehicle when the comms died. She's the reason Lewis got home to teach his daughter how to ride a bike. She's our CO. Corporal Dotto added, Sir, you don't have to like us, but you're going to respect her. My father stared at me like I'd participated in a trick. He dabbed at the wine stain as if it were the problem. Well, he said to no one, then to everyone. Well now. Colonel, someone whispered behind me, and the word moved across the tables. The planner tried to restart time. Let's welcome our newlyweds. People clapped, but their hands weren't in it yet. The band leader chose something with a backbone that could hold weight. Life, which had paused, started checking names again. Dotto said low, Ma'am, we got your 6. I nodded once. I know. The planner approached me. We're moving to toasts. Would you like to say something? I walked to the platform and adjusted the mic. Thank you, I said to the groomsmen first. Then I faced the room. I'm not here to correct anybody's biography. I'm here to celebrate 2 people who chose each other. Marriage is the art of honor in close quarters. You don't have to be perfect to be honorable. You just have to tell the truth, especially when it would be easier not to. I let my gaze pass my father without stopping. In my line of work, we say quiet professionalism. Do the hard things, speak softly, and get your people home. I lifted my glass. Here's to 2 good people getting each other home. The room stood. Not all at once, but in that wave that means something has been decided. My father did not stand, but he didn't speak either. Progress is sometimes subtraction. The morning after, Mark called. Mom, last night. Thank you for not lighting anyone on fire. I wasn't the one who saved the room, I said. A few good men did. They said you saved them first, he said quietly. By noon, the town had metabolized the event. The diner waitress added extra bacon to my BLT and pretended she hadn't. My father didn't call. On the 3rd day, I headed toward his shop. He sat at the workbench with a ledger. I brought the socket set you loaned me, I said. I thought we should talk, I said. We talked enough Saturday, he said. No, I said. You talked. Then other people did. I'd like to speak now. Silence held us. It was a joke, he finally said. Jokes are supposed to be funny to the person who hears them, I said, not just the person who tells them. You never said what you do, he tried. You never asked, I said. You filled the blanks with the story you preferred. So what do you want? I want you to stop, I said. Not just the big performances, the small cuts. I want you to stop buying power with my dignity. What if I can't? He said. It wasn't a dare. It sounded like a confession. Then we'll see each other less, I said. He nodded once. You got hard, he said. I got clear, I said. He closed the ledger. There's a service at the Veterans Memorial on Saturday. I could stand there with you, I nodded. Okay, Saturday was bright? The memorial sits on a square of grass between the library and the post office. We stood near the back. My father had shaved. His tie was quiet. He didn't interrupt when men approached to shake my hand. On the walk back, he said, I've been mean my whole life. You've been afraid, I said. Mean is how afraid dresses for work. You going to fix me now? I can't, I said. I can only draw a map to the line. You walk across. He looked at my hands. Those rings, I don't know what any of them mean. Each one is a story, I said. Not one is a joke. A week later, he came by with tomatoes. You got any salt? We ate standing up. He didn't say he was proud. That word may never live comfortably in his mouth. But when he left, he opened the screen door slowly so it wouldn't slam. Consideration is a dialect. In church that Sunday, after the benediction, a man from my father's bowling league said, Heard your girl gave a speech at that fancy shindig. My father lifted his chin. She didn't give a speech, he said. She gave a standard. Nothing in our story was fixed forever, but the weather had changed. By the time summer deepened into August, the story had made its way around town. At the diner, people asked me about the groomsman, not about my dress size. At church, nobody called me Big Un anymore. They called me by my name. The breakthrough came one Sunday at a cookout in my brother's backyard. My father wandered over and turned to me. This is my daughter, he said. Everyone looked. She runs things bigger than this grill. She takes care of people. It wasn't poetry, but it was enough. Later that night, he stopped by with a jar of pickles. Figured you might like these. We sat in rocking chairs without filling the silence. Sometimes reconciliation doesn't sound like trumpets. Sometimes it sounds like two people agreeing not to sharpen knives anymore. I tell you this story not to humiliate my father, but to honor what can grow even in rocky soil. He was raised in a world where men measured worth with waistlines and wallets. He passed that yardstick to me because it was the only one he had. But that doesn't excuse the damage. Words are hammers. They shape or they shatter. The moral isn't complicated. Respect your children even when they don't look like the picture you imagined. Especially then, the body you mock might be the one carrying a pack through mountains. The quiet child you dismiss might be leading others in moments you'll never see. For those listening, maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're someone still hearing the echo of a cruel sentence from long ago. Remember this, what you say in public can wound for decades. Or it can heal in an instant. You get to choose. As for me, I no longer wait for my father to announce my worth. I've learned that honor isn't given by family introductions. It's lived in the way you carry yourself when the lights are on you. Still, I'll admit he's trying. He calls me by my name more now. Sometimes he even smiles. That's a kind of victory. If you've stayed with me to the end of this story, think about the words you use with the people you love. Think about whether they lift or whether they weigh down. And if you've ever been mocked, know this. You are not defined by the laughter of the room. You are defined by the truth that eventually stands beside you. The greatest revenge isn't a glass of wine spat across a table. The greatest revenge is reconciliation lived in a way that teaches others how to treat people better.